Hey guys, it's Lauren. Thank you for joining me for another video. This video, it's gonna be a get ready with me of this look right here. This has been like my go-to face in general, but this sort of amped up version of it has been very much my sort of default night out look. I've been way more social over the last few weeks than I normally am, so I've like gone out at night, and this has been sort of the most typical variation of that makeup that I have been doing. Now, the eye look is done with the new Nars Narsissist Wanted Palette. I've actually had this guy for about 2 months now, and around like a couple weeks into having this guy, I actually filmed a excessively long review video that also included the lip guy that's in this video as well, and it's like 45 minutes long, and I was so bored just from trying to edit it that I'm just gonna throw a little review of this guy right now into the front end of this video. Long story short about this palette is that I really like it. It is very beat up for only being a couple of months old, very beat up on the inside, so you know that it is well loved. I have been able to create a wealth of looks from it. A couple of things to note about this palette though that like were key things in that excessively long video is that the press photos of this palette are way off. Like, all the photos that I saw of this palette really made it seem like a peachy, rose-toned palette, and that like this green shade, it made it look like it was gold. It just made them all look very pinky gold toned, and there is a lot of that in this palette, but nowhere what those press photos showed, which is really strange. Like, the only way that I really got a clear idea of this palette pre-getting it in person is from like blogger photos that I saw that were posted. So yeah, which I feel like the press photos did themselves a disservice with that, because like this green shade is, oh, if I can find it, is my favorite in this palette, and I think one of like the standout awesome shades about this palette. I would love a like variety of like khaki green toned shimmer and matte palette from Nars, like in this concept. That would be really awesome, because this shade is great, and it's kind of like the focal point of this look. Now, I think all of these shades are new except for the white and the dark brown, so they're all like limited edition, like new formula. I had read that they have some sort of like water suspension in them, so maybe that's what helps create the sort of very interesting shimmer textures to this palette. Now, it is a warm tone palette, so it's very similar to like a million other things out there, but because it has such an awesome like variety of textures to it, it's what has really made me enjoy this palette. You know, you have 1, 2, 3 very like champagne-y shimmer shades, but they all are very different shimmer textures, and I've really liked that. You know, this is just like a typical like easy shimmer highlight shade, and then this one has like a little bit more of this really pretty like golden hue to it, and it's like much more of like a solid sheen. And then this one, now I know I've read on a lot of posts and things that people really dislike this shade, but I really love this one. It is much more impactful. It's a little bit more like starry and wild, and when I first got this palette, this shade, like if you dipped your brush in it or touched it, it just kind of like went all over the place on the palette. So it's really one of the type of like shimmer shades that you really want to make sure you use a finger with. It's not going to apply very well with a brush or anything like that, but from using mainly my finger with it, it has like kind of pressed down in the pan, and it doesn't make such a mess onto the palette now. And I'd say that sort of like with a lot of these different shimmer shades, they were a little bit more like whoosh onto the palette when I first got them, but because using both like wet brushes and my fingers, it's kind of compacted them down. And I do see like sometimes when you get a palette and you get sort of like that compacted almost film that forms on shadows, that it can render them like useless. But even though it sort of like has that not so good looking film on a lot of these, they're still really usable, which is nice. It hasn't rendered them useless. They still perform really well. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it, used it for a wealth of looks. You know, the brown makes a really awesome liner. So I've loved this. It's a good little investment piece that I have just been carting around everywhere. I'm gonna get into the tutorial now, so you can see this if you are so curious to see how I got this look and how it went on my face. So here we go. So I'm starting out using the Glossier Priming Moisturizer. I've already done all of my skincare and SPF. I just like how this sits under makeup and gives a little extra layer of moisturizer. Next up, I'm gonna go in with the Milk Makeup Blur Stick. I've really been liking the way this looks and just sort of like sets my makeup up. I sort of make sure to concentrate this guy more so like in my sort of T-zone area and like the higher points of my cheeks close to my eyes, because those are the areas where I feel like I have some more enlarged pores. And then it's just one of those primers that you really want to make sure you work into the skin before you layer anything else on top of, because of the sort of like filling aspect of it. I can find that it could kind of pill if you don't do that. So my base routine has been a little bit complicated or cocktaily lately. I'll take a pump of the Lancome Teint Idole with a pump of the 1/1 Base Sheer Glow, and then a pump of the Dr. Hauschka Translucent Bronzing Tint. I really like how this mixture just is super glowy and adds just a nice bit of warmth to my face. Maybe it's this time of year or how I've just been not the best of health lately, but this kind of like helps me look more healthy than I normally look. So I'll mix them all together and then I'll just paint it on my face with a Sephora Pro foundation brush, and then I'll just like go in with my fingers and just sort of like make sure that nothing has like brush streaks or is uneven. My concealer of choice lately has been the Milk Makeup Flex Concealer. I'll dot it on underneath my eyes, and then I'll go and take it just to like various blemishes in places that need covering. And then after it like sits for a second, I'll go in and blend it out with a little brush. It's kind of a wet formula, so I find that like giving it a little bit of a moment to dry down first just like makes it not just like go everywhere when I then blend it out. To set everything, I'm going to be using the Glossier Wowder all over my face. For my brows, I am just using a random micro pencil that has long run out, but I've saved it for the spoolie to groom them. And then I'm gonna go in with an old staple, which is the e.l.f. Studio EyeBrow Kit. I've had this thing for ages. It might have been the first ever eyebrow related product I purchased, potentially. Anyways, I like using the pomade and just like an angled sort of eyeshadow type of brush to then work it in. All right, finally getting into the eyeshadow. With a fluffy brush, I am picking up Biarritz. It is a nice matte creamy shade, and I am just blending that all over my lid, all the way up to underneath my eyebrows. Next, I am picking up the sort of lighter brown shade called Seven Heaven, and I started out working that into my crease, but then eventually just placed it not only in my crease, but all the way down my lid. I find that the shimmers like Fallen Star work better if I have a slightly colored base underneath. That way they can pop more. To start building up the depth, I pick up the next darker brown shade called Shadow Hill, and I work that into my natural crease and to like the sort of above crease area to create dimension. With a slightly more dense eyeshadow brush, this one is actually from e.l.f., I am picking up the really beautiful bronzy brown shade in this palette called Lala, and I am just sort of focusing it on the, I'd say, front part of the lid towards the lash line, and then just smudging it out over the lid. With a dampened angled eyeliner brush, I'm using the MAC 263. I'm dipping into the dark brown shade in this called Coconut Grove and creating a line right into my lash line. Now, I don't care if this line is particularly perfect, because after I let it sort of dry down for a second, I'm going to grab that denser brush from e.l.f. again, and I'm gonna use that to sort of smudge it out. I like the effect that eyeliner gives to my eyes, but I find that it can be really drastic, and since I want the shimmer to be more of a focal point, that is why I like to smudge it out as well as put it on before I layer the shimmer. Now I'm gonna start building up the intense amount of shimmer that I'm going to be doing, starting out with the lightest beige shimmer called Satisfaction, and just working that onto the area above the brown crease towards the eyebrow. And then I'm going to pick up the shade Delirium, which has a little bit more impactful sheen, and I'm going to brush that all over the lid and into the crease. Now with my finger, I am dipping into Fallen Star, that green shade that I said that I super love, and I'm just spreading it all over the lid and just sort of continuously packing it on until I get the effect that I want. And then just to add a little extra bit of glimmering shimmerness, I am dipping in with my finger as well into the shade Shooting Star and kind of concentrating that more onto the sort of the center of the lid to give it a little bit more of like a pop. And then with the same e.l.f. eye crease brush, I am dipping it into Lala again and using that on my lower lash line. And then I just realized how I wanted the dimension to be a little bit more, well, dimensioned, sort of. And so I continued taking more of Lala up into the crease, so then the sort of lower lash line connects into the crease. I'm curling my lashes with the Surratt eyelash curler and then going in with the 100% pure black tea mascara. I like this mascara when I first got it, but now that it has dried out more, I like it even more. I find that because the formula is more dry, that it can build off of itself easier, and that way I can create a more impactful set of lashes. With a sort of tapered, fluffier brush from BH Cosmetics, I am bronzing up with Nars Laguna. I got this mini in like a Sephora like points rewards redemption, and I'd never used this bronzer before and I really like it. It has a little bit of shimmer, which I need right now. I don't need anything like flat and matte. For blush, I'm using Marc Jacobs Air Blush in Flesh and Fantasy. This is a really nice sort of rosy toned neutral blush that kind of ties any look together, and I'd say goes with like 90% of the looks that I do. For highlighter, I am using the RMS Beauty Luminizer Quad. I picked this guy up a couple months ago and I really like it. It's kind of a play off of the Living Luminizer, and today I am dipping into the Champagne Fizz and the Champagne Rose shade. Now that most of my powders and creams are done, I'm gonna go in with Glossier Boy Brow. Whenever I'm using like a brow gel or anything in this nature, I like to do it at the end because, like the Glossier Boy Brow, it's a little bit wetter. If I do it before, I find that from the powders, I end up making my eyebrows look super ashy. Now I did want to mention the lipstick that I am using in this video. This is the Le Baton Rouge Surratt lipstick. It's dual-ended, so on one end you have this like creamy, almost pencil liner, and then on the other end there is this pigment. Now the pigment has this sort of sponge applicator that has really created sort of like a dense film over top of it, so it doesn't really dispense that well. And putting it over top of a cream as you're supposed to layer it just has kind of made it like really difficult to use and get the color out, which is unfortunate. It is a super pretty color, and if you really like this type of color, I'd say 100% pure, and the color Zinnia is really similar, as well as Kat Von D's Cathedrals. But yeah, it's sort of unfortunately kind of pills on itself, and it is not long wearing at all. But yeah, I have been wearing this color of lip, or I will wear this with a nude. I've been super into Glossier's Cake as well, so that has been a color that I've been wearing with this look. All right, this is the full face. I hope you guys enjoyed this little get ready with me. If you did, please toss it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. And yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.